So it's been about a week since Saturate hit digital shelves everywhere, and I thought you guys would like to know the life behind the tracks. So there was a lot that went into making this album. It was pretty much just 2 years of great and somewhat awful experiences. It's just my life, really. I mean, everyone has their ups and downs, but I just decided to express mine in an auditory manner, I guess, so you guys could share along with these moments. So we're gonna go off of the order of the actual album because the order plays a big part in the actual storytelling of the album. Starting with Waiting on an Echo. So that was the first track I wrote. It was about February last year, and I started playing this really weird strum pattern, it became my first math rock song ever. I was doing this really light singing because I actually had no voice at the time, which is stated later in the song. Here's a demo. I'm still pretending that I'm not afraid. If only you could read my mind. There's this weird thing that happens almost at the beginning of every year where I lose my voice for a couple weeks. It's been maybe 4 days at the least. I have no ability to actually sing properly, and talking becomes really difficult. And I don't know what it is, and I've never thought that it was bad enough for me to go check it out. I kind of think it's allergies. But the bridge of that song is just kind of based off how every year I have to redefine my voice and basically learn how to sing again. Outside of that, the rest of the song is just about me starting to speak my mind on what I think and how thinking doesn't really solve problems or progress situations. A Door to Solver Escapades was the moment that I knew I was making an album. It's actually the 4th song I wrote, but when I wrote it, I knew I was making a full length, and I knew somewhat of the direction I wanted to go with the entire process. This song just talks about physically being separated. It's very domestic the way that I wrote this. It's like a guy and a girl singing to each other. Because when I wrote it, I visualized character A, door, and then character B, and how this door isn't solving their problem, and the verses are them singing back and forth, and it's mostly thoughts that they have in their mind, and when they try and vocalize those thoughts, it ends up the bridge, them kind of yelling back and forth. And it's basically the embodiment of how a door can't solve problems. Physical separation doesn't solve problems. You can't just ignore something, and then when you try and go back to it, it'd be solved. Hey James. It's probably the most simple and fun, somewhat straightforward song I've written on this album. I always find a way to convolute my song ideas, and this kind of just bypassed it because of how honest and fun it was to make. So that Hey James video, all of the video is me live recording it, and I just decided to record it, take it, and throw it on YouTube. And it was why should I do more? And even though I just said all those things about convolution, I went ahead and made it be a song that was an odd meter and convoluted it that way. Even though I decided to sing it straightforward and not hammer in the odd meter, it was just a way to get this straightforward idea and also have my weird convolution that I kind of need, I've grown accustomed to. But the content of the song, the lyrics, are about how I had this friend named James in high school, and every once in a while I'll get on Facebook and I'm like, what is this guy up to? And I remembered a long time ago I promised him that I would make a song about him, and I never really got around to it until that point. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna do this in a day. So the lyrics in the song are basically me singing hey dude, what's up? It's been so long. Just so you know, you basically changed the course of my entire life. Me and my friend James used to talk on Skype a lot. We would play video games, and I would make songs about whatever situation we were in. And at that point, I really wanted to be an architect, and this was back in high school. Just having fun and playing more and more and getting better at guitar through that pretty much changed my mind and made music the primary thing I wanted to do. So, in a big way, thanks, James, because that's what I do now. That's why I have speakers and audio stuff. Bear with an Animal Mask. I wrote this song sometime last year when I was really mad and very sure that my old band was gonna break up. And I have this framed dollar, which is the first dollar I ever made making music, which was when I was in that band. As time went on and I was more and more sure that that band was gonna break up, looking at that dollar just really got to me. So the lyric, sitting on a frame is just another piece of proof to talk about, is really just a direct reference at that. And then the rest of the song starts becoming this really weird kind of poking at some character, which starts to more and more embody the rest of the album. So the overall feeling I guess I had when I wrote this song last year was anger and the overwhelming want to quit music because everything was going wrong. But I had this idea in the back of my mind that music was my fate and no matter what, it was gonna catch up to me. Like if I went back to wanting to be an architect and draw things all the time, that wouldn't make me happy and I would be right back on the path of making music. So with that, you now know the character I was poking fun at is myself. And now, Perforated Lines. Perforated Lines was the last song I wrote for the album, and I decided to go very raw with it. It's an a cappella track that more directly references what the rest of the album is going to be talking about, which is me talking to my younger self. The song starts off with basically my inability to say exactly how I feel, which is kind of like a full reset of the entire album. I then go on to say that the day that I actually start saying what I mean is the day that my fate catches up with me. So Perforated Lines' all-encompassing idea is that younger me was being kind of dumb, and that older me is really focused on how dumb I was and is trying to say, hey, why are you so dumb? Stop being so dumb. When in reality, older me looking at younger me is pretty dumb. And that's pretty convoluted, but that was the idea. So now we land on the first title track, Soak. But in this song, I'm no longer just talking to myself and recommending better things to do. I'm distancing myself from younger me, saying that I won't let those ideals or anything around those ideals soak into my life and affect me in any way. And that's that entire concept. I will never let this soak in. I will never let it change who I am. I'll never let surrounding entities become me or change me. Which segues us into the next song, Saturated. So in this song, I take the ideals I built up in Soak about not letting things in and completely become saturated. Now that I've wasted so much time saying that I won't let these things soak in and thinking about all the dumb things I did as a kid and how I could be totally better than that, the reality of everything hits me. The reality that what I'm doing now is just a big summation of what I've experienced in the past. I can't talk about not letting things soak in because I'm already saturated in those things. I am those things. So in being those things, it kind of clips off the concept of everything, really. I kind of derail all the hope that the album has left, which spirals us into the ending of the album. The next track, Black Toes, I'm pretty sure I released this one as the first single before the album was even announced. This was the hardest song for me to make because it was the most real, and knowing that this song existed definitely affected the direction I wanted to go with this album after Saturate. I decided to go very post-rock and ambient, and the entire track I decided to do a falsetto, and this video is actually where I did all the vocal tracking. I decided that it would be more intimate if you could physically see how I went through and sang that entire vocal part, because you probably can't see what my eyes look like in that video, but I was tearing up the entire time because of how real that song is to me. The song is about how I kind of felt that I grew up really fast and how much I respect my grandma and my parents for raising me, and how much people just kind of like forget that stuff. Like, people forget the fact that their parents work so hard for them, and the fact that they have a bed or like AC is a really big deal. It's basically me recognizing those things and being really thankful for those things. But on the other side of the coin, the fear that goes with losing your mind as you get older. I don't think it's a family thing that I have, but I do know that some people in my family have started to lose their mental capabilities. Like, whenever I hang out with my grandma, she's always asking me, have you finished high school yet? How old are you now? And I'm like, oh, I'm 21. And she's like, how did you get to be so old? What is that on your face? Is that hair? Like, how did that happen? And I'm like, you've seen me, like, so many times. How have you not remembered any of this? So the chorus I decided to go with, don't grow up too fast and don't forget me. And it just hurts to sing that. Like, I don't think I'll ever be able to sing that live, and I don't even know if I'd ever take the Vex project live because a lot of this stuff is just so real to me. Short stories. So this one I took a little bit to write because I had a special guest who is my roommate now. His name's Bobby, and I decided I wanted to take the time and have someone else's voice and lyrics on a track that basically just begs the question, why? Why do things happen? Like, why do these sad or bad things happen? It's basically how people create their own problems or can't escape their own problems, how their biggest characteristics are their biggest flaws. It's kind of negative, but I felt like a lot of people could connect to it because there's so many directions every story can go. So finally we come to the end of this concept with Compress the Coal, which is a very direct and kind of dark song. It's not that dark, it's just really macabre in a way. So the song starts off with me questioning how people react to what I do, because I go from making music that sounds like this to making music that sounds like this. So the main concept of the song is basically how people can be in a situation and always say, oh, it gets better, even though they're very unsure and they don't know how to take the next step to make it better. Specific references point directly towards how my last band failed and the possibility of another band I'm in failing. It's basically my fears realized in a song. Like, the feeling of people leaving something that you've created together is like possibly the worst feeling. So basically this song embodies that. This is probably the most honest set of writings I've ever made. But let's move on to the themes. There are three major working themes in this, and those are the concept, the actual order of the songs, and the sound of the songs. These all work together consistently throughout the album to change the feeling of the album and sync up with the ideas of the songs. So the name Soak and Saturate isn't just the title or the concept, it's actually part of the construct, because I decided to use a lot of saturation throughout the album. So when it gets to its bigger points, it starts to just get distorted on the sides. Like, when the first time it builds up in the album is Hey James. It starts off Waiting on an Echo, which is completely acoustic, moving on to Adore to Solve Our Escapades, which only adds a kick and a snare, moving into Hey James, which has a full drum kit, and it was actually the first song I played drums on ever recorded. On that track, I decided to keep the acoustics, but just completely distort them, and then later in the song we add electrics. From that song, we go to the more serious song, A Bear with an Animal Mask, which is all the way out and completely distorted on the sides, completely saturated on the sides. And at that point, it kind of topples over and leads into Perforated Lines, which is a complete breakdown of everything I built up sound-wise. And from Perforated Lines, it goes up into Soak, which is probably the most crisp track on the album. And from that point, it goes into Saturate, which has basically the same construct, but is undercompressed and has saturation or tape saturation on the sides, which kind of just slaps you in the face because it's math rock without the ability to hear the hard accents. And from that song, the rest of the album just topples over and it starts to build up leading into the last track, but doesn't build up as heavy as the rest of the album did. Starting with Black Toes, ambient and slow, moving into Short Stories, which kind of speeds up the pace, and then dies back down with Compress the Coal, and then finally ends with Part 1. I think right now was the best time to release the album because it's kind of the closing of a lot of ideals I had. Back when I was a kid and I had no idea what was going on, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I hated a lot of stuff, and things got to me more than they do now. And when things got to me, I didn't know how to react to them. To someone who hasn't heard a lot of the songs, I'd say give the rest of them a listen. There's probably something in there that you can connect with. And if not, I think a lot of them are pretty good songs. I think we can end there.